The Final Fantasy VII Remake has just emerged from what seemed like the depths of hell when it was being teased that we might be hearing about the Final Fantasy VII Remake as a part of Sony's State of Play 10-minute little video that they had. I was just thinking, alright, there's no chance that the Final Fantasy VII Remake is gonna make a re-emergence at State of Play, given that the last State of Play, honestly, I know some of you guys liked it, but I think the general consensus was that it was a colossal disappointment. I was just thinking, there's no way we're gonna see a Final Fantasy VII Remake make its foray back into the gaming world, whether it be even with just that little trailer we saw, and given that all of the teasing that we saw had Cloud pointing towards that Chocobo, I was like, okay, this is gonna be some random Chocobo game, and everybody's gonna be really disappointed, so I didn't want to push the cart before the horse, but lo and behold, we got a brand new trailer for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and now it is time that we can really start talking about this game, because while the Final Fantasy VII Remake was announced all the way back in 2015, we knew we weren't gonna see it for a while, and that's because they were still working on Final Fantasy 15, and then you knew that they had to work on Kingdom Hearts 3, so the Final Fantasy VII Remake, while we were so excited to see it back in 2015, I already knew that we were not going to see this game for a very, very long time. Even though it was being promoted as a PlayStation 4 game, I had my hesitancy and my skepticism back then in 2015 when the PlayStation 4 had just been out for a little bit that Final Fantasy VII would actually be released on the PS4, and I'm still a little bit skeptical of that to this day. It does seem like it'll be a PS4 game, but now we got the trailer, now we can really start talking about it, because Kingdom Hearts 3 is in the rearview mirror, Final Fantasy 15 with all the unfortunate stuff that happened with that game, the game generally being a little bit of a disappointment, the story being a disaster, gameplay being quite good, and overall I thought the game was pretty good, just a little bit of a disappointment, and the content that was planned for the game unfortunately being cancelled, a little bit of an unfortunate fate with Final Fantasy 15, but at least now that game is in the rearview mirror as well, as I believe the development of Final Fantasy 15 is one thing that's really held back Square Enix for quite a while. Now we can just move forward, and hopefully let's move forward in a positive sense. We got a new trailer for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and wow, it looks spectacular. Given what we saw in 2015, yes, it looks like a sizable improvement upon what we got back then, and we're gonna get more information about the game in June, and there's so much to digest in what we're actually gonna get into the game, but that's not really what I'm gonna talk about in today's video. Rather, one of the main talking points with the Final Fantasy VII Remake has been the fact that this game is gonna be split into multiple episodes. We had heard that way back when the game was originally announced, and I think a lot of you guys just thought that that was absolutely absurd and no way that that would actually stick with the final release, and I don't think this is a case of it being like a Walking Dead game where you drop $25 from the get-go and then the game is piecemeal to you for a while. I think this is a case where Square Enix knows that they kind of have gamers by the balls. They know how much you guys want to play Final Fantasy VII, and yeah, it would be cool to get $60 from you guys to play Final Fantasy VII, and they'd probably sell a lot of copies at that $60 price point, but they're probably going to sell a lot of copies if they nickel and dime you a little bit, and I think this is a case where gamers are going to be okay with it because of the magnitude of a game that Final Fantasy VII is, and because of how iconic of a game that Final Fantasy VII is. And I think really prior to 2015, a lot of us didn't even think that a Final Fantasy VII Remake was ever going to happen, just because of the disaster that was the development of Final Fantasy 15. The notion of Square Enix actually getting their crap together and figuring out a way to make the Final Fantasy VII Remake happen, I think back before 2015 when it was announced, I think a lot of us just saw it as something that would be absolutely impossible, but it is happening, and Square Enix knows. Again, they have us by the balls. They have so many people that want to play this game. I don't think just in the notion of people being nostalgic over Final Fantasy VII, but this is a game that has built so much acclaim over the years. It was a gigantic success back in 1997 when it was originally released, but over the years, it has become this entity that has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it's one of the most iconic games in all of gaming, and it's really transcended your typical Japanese RPG. The character of Cloud being in Smash Brothers, being one of the focal characters in that game, and outside of the game itself, just the characters, the recognition this game has. I think if you're even a semblance of a gamer, you have at least at some point heard of Final Fantasy VII, maybe you tried to play it and the visuals just were a little bit too off-putting, but you've heard about how spectacular this game is, and that brings me to my main point. If this game is released episodically, let's say it's released as a 3-part experience and each part is released at a full $60, is that enough to push people away? Now, it's a question that seemingly has a lot of people divisive. Some people will say, hey, this is the Final Fantasy VII Remake, we've been waiting so long for it, I'll pay whatever it takes to actually play it. Then there's the other side that isn't as attached to Final Fantasy VII as an experience, thinking, hey, and I would say that this is the more rational thought in thinking that, hey, this is a game that was originally released in 1997, sure, you're remaking it, but it's a game just like every other game, we've played a lot of great games over the past couple of years, and we paid $59.99 for them. What gives FF7 the right to be re-released as a game in multiple parts and being released as $60 parts with all of them? If it's a 3-part game, $60 a pop, that would be $180, and yes, that sounds absolutely ridiculous. Now, that is just speculation on my part. We don't actually know. We don't know Square's rationale for releasing this as a multi-part experience. On one hand, Final Fantasy VII is an incredibly expansive game, and to remake it from the ground up for the PlayStation 4, yes, it's gonna be an enormous game, especially if you're trying to redo the whole overworld, whatever the case may be. That is a gigantic undertaking, and from that notion, I can see why you would want to make the game multiple parts. But if you are charging $60 for each part, that is also a massive investment from the gamer, and to ask that from the gamer, that's huge. Now, you could do something where the game is released as 3 parts, and then you could buy like a season pass or something for $100, and that'll get you every part. But in that case, that's still $100, and I think that's best case scenario. I see some people thinking that, oh, they're just gonna release the game in multiple parts, but it's still gonna be $60 and you're gonna get the entirety of the game. I find that to be very, very wishful thinking. Look at it from the lens of Square Enix and being a studio that has had some fumbled releases recently. I point to you games like The Quiet Man, I point to you games like Just Cause 4, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, most recently Left Alive. Although Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3 are seemingly doing rather well, Final Fantasy 15 was an incredible undertaking from a budget standpoint. Kingdom Hearts 3, the same argument can be made from that, and if you're looking at it from the lens of Square Enix, they know that Final Fantasy VII Remake, yes, will sell a lot of copy if we just do a traditional release of the game, but why actually separate the game into multiple parts? If it's not for the sake of making additional revenue, I don't see any reason to actually make it into multiple parts. You could make the argument that, okay, this will actually allow Square Enix to make the game and release it in a timely format, but does Square Enix really care about that? At the end of the day, you still have to do all of the work in creating the game. Do you really care about just selling the game a little bit early and getting the $60 right away? I don't think from their standpoint they really care about that, which makes me think the only reason they want to break it up into multiple parts is to get more money out of the gamer. And I think in this case, yes, it might sting a little bit, but given the magnitude of a game that Final Fantasy VII is, if you do release the remake and there's like a season pass where you get every episode for $100, I think a lot of gamers would actually pick that up. Look, we've got so many games coming out these days with gold editions and all these various editions, crazy microtransactions, whatever the case may be. Maybe the retail box has that $59.99 sticker on it, but are games really $59.99 anymore? Ask yourself that. Are you really paying $59.99 if you're getting a game on day one, if you're buying all of the DLC? Look at a game like Mortal Kombat 11. Can you tell me with a straight face that that game is $60? No. Not only was the base game $60, but there was a pre-order bonus character that was $6 if you didn't pre-order the game. Then there's the combat pass for $40, and then there's a bunch of microtransactions in the game, and that's becoming more and more of a regularity in gaming. Even games like The Division 2, Gold Edition for that. Kingdom Hearts 3, it's gonna have some paid DLC content. Final Fantasy 15. Oh, would you look at that? It had a season pass, and then it also had the Royal Edition upgrade. Then you had the Ardent DLC. Then they had other DLC planned, but they canceled it. Square Enix knows that there's ways that they can add longevity to their game in terms of generating revenue. And from a business standpoint, you would have to think when they lay everything out on paper, Final Fantasy VII Remake is a game that they can make so much money off of if they extend it beyond that $60 price point. That is that traditional price point. I know that some of you guys are going to be upset. I already looked through the comment section, but I'm just speaking at it from the vantage point of Square Enix and talking about it from a business standpoint. I think that is what we're in for, and I do think the game is still going to sell incredibly well. Maybe they'll do something where each part is released at $40. I don't have any insight on that. This is all just speculation, but just generally hearing the enthusiasm for a game like this, I think this is one instance where Square Enix can get away with nearly anything that they want to, as long as the game is up to a quality standpoint and they deliver on their promises, and it is that compelling Final Fantasy VII experience. If you release it in 3 parts and it's $60 a pop, I think they can get away with that. Ideally, if I'm looking at it from a business standpoint and pleasing consumers as best as I can, I think the best way to be doing it, if you do this multi-part release, which is still the case right now, I think the most you could ask for is, I say pay $100 and then you get access to every episode as it is released. But that's my 2 cents. This is mainly to hear your guys' thoughts, so make sure you comment with your thoughts. What kind of release pattern would you like to see? Would you buy the parts want as they are released, or would you wait until the end and wait for the entire collection and then buy it then? What's the most that you would pay? I think this is very important to be actually vocal about, because Square Enix is probably just gonna throw a number in the dark, and then when that number comes out, a lot of us are probably gonna be surprised and be like, what the hell is going on? Hopefully, with a multiple episode release, this also does mean we can get the game a little bit earlier. I would love to see the game be released by the end of 2019. I know that's a little bit of a stretch to some of you guys, and you're thinking it might be a 2020, 2021 type of game. However, at that point, would this transition to a PlayStation 5 game? So many questions to be asked, but definitely sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. That's going to conclude this one. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.